I'm talking about your own body. Think of the human body as this incredibly complex, microscopic fortress. Right? Every minute of every day, this fortress is navigating a super delicate balance between health and disease, just fending off unseen invaders while trying to maintain total internal harmony. So in this explainer, we're going to visually map out exactly how this biological battleground operates.
Okay, let's dive into this. Now, before we get into all the complex cellular warfare, we kind of have to look at the outer perimeter first. Maintaining personal hygiene, simple things like just keeping clean, is our absolute frontline defense. But it doesn't stop there. A balanced diet literally provides the building blocks our fortress needs to repair its walls and, well, arm its guards. Grounding the complex biology of our bodies really begins with these everyday, completely controllable actions.
And those physical actions extend even further. Dynamic practices like yoga, for example, don't just stretch our muscles, they actively contribute to the overall physical and mental resilience of our biological fortress. And hey, this isn't just a solo pursuit. World Health Day, which is celebrated on April 7th, is a great reminder that our individual daily actions actually scale up to a massive global perspective of human wellness.
So to make sense of all this, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, we'll define what health and disease actually mean. Second, we'll look at the invaders, the infectious diseases trying to break in. Third, we'll meet our defenders, our immune system. Fourth, we'll tackle the severe battles of AIDS and cancer. And finally, we'll examine the trap of addiction. Let's get into it.
Chapter 1. Defining Health and Disease.
So before we talk about our fortress being under attack, we really need to know what a perfect baseline looks like. Health is officially defined as the physical, mental, and social well-being of an individual. This is absolutely crucial. Health isn't just, the absence of a cough or a fever. It's a holistic state. I mean, if the physical structure is sound, but the mental or social networks inside the fortress are strained, well, the system just isn't truly healthy. It requires total well-being.
So the crucial point is how we categorize what goes wrong. Diseases, which literally means disturbed ease, kind of a cool way to think about it, fall into two distinct camps. On one side, we've got infectious diseases. These are easily transmitted from an infected person to a healthy person via pathogens. Think of things like typhoid or tuberculosis. On the flip side, we have non-infectious diseases. Now, these are not transmitted between people. Instead, they happen due to hereditary factors, deficiencies, or environmental triggers. Stuff like hypertension and heart disease sit right in this category.
Chapter 2. The Invaders, Infectious Diseases.
Now that we know the types of threats, let's look at some of our most common viral enemies. Honestly, the sheer variety here is staggering. You've got the orthomyxovirus, causing influenza, spread simply by respiratory droplets. Then there's the SARS coronavirus, attacking the lungs, causing severe respiratory syndrome. And further down, you see dengue, caused by a flavirevovirus, which actually targets the platelets in your blood. The invaders are just incredibly diverse, utilizing completely different tactics, symptoms, and modes of entry to compromise our systems.
And speaking of modes of entry, the Anopheles mosquito is basically a master delivery system for an invader. This mosquito acts as a vector for a protozoan called Plasmodium, which causes the totally devastating disease malaria. What's wild is that the sexual phase of the Plasmodium happens right inside this mosquito, while the asexual phase takes place inside human hosts. It's this highly evolved, dual-host invasion strategy that just makes malaria incredibly persistent.
Moving on to Chapter 3. The Defenders, Our Immunity.
But hey, our bodies are not defenseless. Far from it. The umbrella term for our internal defense is immunity. That's the overall ability of the host to fight off disease-causing organisms. This is basically your personal biological military. Its primary directive is to recognize exactly what belongs in the fortress and absolutely neutralize everything else.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how our military is divided into two distinct forces: innate immunity and acquired immunity. Innate immunity is non-specific, and get this, it's present from the exact moment you're born. Think of these as the thick outer walls and the boiling oil of a medieval castle. They don't care who the invader is, they just block them. Acquired immunity, on the other hand, is pathogen-specific and develops over your lifetime. This is your highly trained special ops team. They remember the specific face of an enemy and know exactly how to take them down if they ever dare to return.
Let's look a little closer at those castle walls, the innate immunity. It's actually made of 4 overlapping barriers. First, we have physical barriers, literally like our skin. Then we've got physiological barriers, like the acid in your stomach or lysozymes in your tears. Next are cellular barriers, where certain types of white blood cells patrol the blood. And finally, we have cytokine barriers. These are special proteins released by virus-infected cells to protect the non-infected cells nearby. So it's this rapid, overlapping web of immediate defense.
But what happens when invaders breach the walls? Well, that's when the acquired immunity kicks in, and this relies heavily on two crucial types of cells. First up, B lymphocytes. These are basically the factories that produce a specialized army of proteins called antibodies, like IgA, IgM, and IgG, which bind directly to antigens. Second, we have T lymphocytes. Now, while they don't produce antibodies themselves, T cells help B cells produce them. They also act as helper, suppressor, and natural killer cells. Together, they clear the threat, and this is the most important part, they generate memory, so your body can instantly crush that specific invader the next time around.
Chapter 4: Severe Battles, AIDS and Cancer.
Sometimes, however, our biological defenses face challenges that are uniquely devastating. Let's look at the mechanics of HIV, the virus that causes AIDS. This retrovirus is so destructive because it literally sabotages this defense system itself. Here's how it works. The virus enters the body and uses an enzyme called reverse transcriptase to turn its viral RNA into viral DNA. Then, it actually incorporates this DNA directly into the host's genome. The infected cell starts churning out more virus particles, and in the process, the body's T lymphocytes, those crucial commander cells of our immune system we just talked about, are actively destroyed. So the body essentially loses its ability to coordinate a defense.
The other major, severe battle is cancer, which is where our own cells lose their regulatory mechanisms. An absolutely crucial concept here is metastasis. This is the property of malignant tumor cells to invade and finally damage surrounding cells and tissues. Unlike benign tumors that just stay put, metastatic cells break away and spread the battle to multiple fronts within the body. And as you can imagine, that makes it incredibly difficult to fight. When the body is overwhelmed by these rogue cells, modern medicine has to intervene. The core treatments include surgery to physically remove the tumor, radiotherapy to irradiate cancer cells, and chemotherapy, which uses specific drugs to kill them. Furthermore, we now have immunotherapy, which is pretty amazing. It attempts to actively boost or restore the patient's own immune system so it can recognize and fight the cancer cells itself.
Chapter 5: The Trap of Addiction, Chemical Dependence.
For our final chapter, we're stepping away from pathogens to look at a systemic breakdown caused by external chemical dependence. To really understand the biological trap of addiction, you have to understand withdrawal syndrome. That's the adverse physical and psychological symptoms that occur when a regular user suddenly stops taking drugs or alcohol. You see, addiction isn't just a bad habit. It physically rewires the body's chemical expectations, making the actual absence of the substance cause literal biological distress.
And that leads directly into a vicious cycle of dependence. Substance abuse severely impacts physical, psychological, and social health. At a biological level, it manipulates our natural pathways. For example, nicotine acts as a massive stimulant in the body specifically because it chemically imitates the effect of acetylcholine, which is an essential neurotransmitter. The body just gets tricked. The chemical balance is completely altered, and that holistic health we defined at the very beginning of this explainer, well, it's shattered.
Let's move to and see how this builds together with a quick challenge. A previous year's question asks, active immunity indicates what? Is it A, decreased heartbeat, B, increasing blood, C, resistance developed after suffering a disease, or D, resistance at birth? Well, based on how our acquired immunity generates memory, the answer is for sure C, resistance developed after suffering a disease. It's your body learning and adapting from the battle. And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating thought. If our immune systems are constantly learning and acquiring memory from every single pathogen we encounter, how will our internal biological fortresses evolve to look 100 years from now?